Some people are not happy with Windows 11 and the direction that is going, while others are just curious to see if there is another operating system that can match Windows 11 in performance when gaming. In this video I'm gonna compare Windows 11 and Linux while using an RTX 5090 with a few surprising results. When it comes to the Linux distribution, I chose CachyOS, an Arch-based distribution that has everything at your fingertips when it comes to setting up the OS for gaming. You just need to follow the documentation on the CachyOS page for gaming configuration. My advice is to just use apps, tweaks, and install the gaming package. After that, just follow the instructions on how to set up your game clients like Steam or Lattice or Heroic launchers for GOG, Epic and other game launchers. And that's it, you are ready to game on Linux. For this comparison, I made sure that both operating systems are up to date. I'm gonna focus only at 1440p and 4K, no upscaling, enable DLAA when available and use path tracing as opposed to ray tracing in the games that have this feature. I'm gonna focus on some meaningful side-by-side runs so I don't waste your time. After the side-by-side runs, I'm gonna dive in the performance analysis, share some issues I encountered while testing, and close with my opinion on gaming in Linux using a Nvidia GPU. I will start with Raster Games, then move to ray tracing or path tracing games. First, let's start with Counter-Strike 2. I use competitive settings and only at 1440p, as I don't think there are people that play it at 4K. This game runs native in Linux, there is no need for a translation layer. As we can see on the screen, CachyOS manages to deliver better frames when pitted against Windows. The GPU is not fully utilized, so this may be another reason. Let's move to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 at 1440p. While using max settings on both operating systems, we can see that Windows has an edge, delivering around 10% more performance than CachyOS, a minor win for Windows. When I move to 4K using the same settings, the performance gap shrinks to around 5% in favor of Windows. In Stellar Blade, a game that was recently released, using maximum settings, we can see that Windows wins again, delivering about 11% more performance over what CachyOS can deliver. The GPU utilization in Windows is not maxed out, sitting at around 80% in some areas, the same as in Linux. Increasing the resolution to 4K, we can see that the performance gap is the same, with Windows delivering around 11% more performance. Witcher 3 is an older game, but it was updated or maybe remastered, and now it supports ray tracing. Nevertheless, without ray tracing, Windows is ahead by more than 14% at 1440p. GPU utilization is close to 100%, and because of that, the gap becomes to increase. Increasing the resolution to 4K, the gap now stands at almost 15%. The performance gap is consistent at both resolutions, but this is kind of it in the sense that in the other games the performance gap increases. In Cyberpunk 2077, when using max settings and DLAA, the gap stands at around 28% in favor of Windows at 1440p, delivering 144.1 averages as opposed to only 111.8 for CachyOS. At 4K, the gap shrinks to only 20% in favor of Windows. And this is kind of a trend, to be honest. An even bigger performance gap can be seen in Spider-Man 2, where at 1440p using maximum settings without no post-processing, Windows delivers 33% more performance over Linux, while at 4K using the same settings the gap increased to around 39%. In most other games the performance gap is more or less the same. In this chart you can see all other results obtained in the other games at 1440p. I was not able to run the alters at 1440p in Linux as it was constantly crashing. Averaging the results obtained in all games tested, we can see that Windows is ahead by around 5%, but this result is because Linux had a lead in Counter-Strike 2 and I removed the alter results for CachyOS. If I would remove Counter-Strike 2 and keep the alters, the difference in performance would be around 20% in favor of Windows. Now this is the chart for the 4K results. There is no win for CachyOS over Windows when using an Nvidia GPU here. We have results for the alters, so this will paint a better picture. Averaging the results obtained at 4K in the games tested, we can see that Windows delivers a bit more than 21% more performance over CachyOS. Even so, this means that a 5090 in Linux will outperform a 4090 and any other GPU in Windows. Now let's move to ray tracing and path tracing games. First, Witcher 3 with ray tracing. This game seems to be running well on both operating systems as the averages are almost identical. Windows 11 delivers better 1% low values though, with 87.5, while CachyOS manages 64.5. Increasing the resolution to 4K sees Windows delivering 10% more performance on average, while the 1% low values are 44% higher on Windows as opposed to Linux. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is built on IDTech engine, and it uses Vulkan instead of DirectX API. In this game I set path tracing to the max. It seems that CachyOS delivers a marginal better experience as it has better 1% low value, tending at 82, while Windows managed 75.6 frames per second. Increasing the resolutions sees the two operating systems deliver similar results. It seems that Vulkan games run the same on both operating systems. Doom: The Dark Ages uses the same IDTech engine as Indiana Jones, and at 1440p with path tracing maxed out, we can see that Windows enjoys a small lead of 4 frames per second for the averages and the 1% low values. This engine is well optimized. Moving to 4K sees both operating systems delivering the same performance. This goes to show that Linux can be on par with Windows if drivers are optimized. These two last games were the only ones that were using Vulkan API, all others used DirectX 12. In Spider-Man 2, for instance, at 1440p the performance gap is noticeable. That is because we have dips below 60 FPS, while in Windows the averages are above 80 FPS. Increasing the resolution to 4K sees Windows 11 averaging 65 FPS, while CachyOS sits at 52. In the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster, Windows delivers much better averages. Don't guide yourself by the 1% low values, as the shortcut key to start and stop the benchmark opens the menu, and this is why the values are low on both operating systems. In Cyberpunk 2077, the other game where I use path tracing, the gap between Windows 11 and CachyOS is big, amounting to around 45% at 1440p. At 4K the performance gap shrinks to around 40%, but it's still a big gap. This is the chart for the 1440p runs. Path tracing was enabled in Cyberpunk 2077, Doom: The Dark Ages and Indiana Jones, while the other games used ray tracing. At 1440p using the games tested, Windows had a lead of 13% on average. Now the 4K chart. Things don't change much when compared to 1440p results, only the performance gap in Cyberpunk 2077 is bigger, while in the other games the gap is more or less the same. Due to the low performance in Cyberpunk 2077, the performance gap has increased to around 15%. Not all games will run in Linux. Some competitive games will not work due to the kernel level anti-cheat. ProtonDB is your best bet to see if the game runs under Linux and what you need to tweak if you have issues with some games. I was not able to make the alter run at 1440p in Linux as I got stuck on this screen. I encountered the same issue at 4K once, but after restarting I managed to make it work. If you are considering Linux, make sure that you check ProtonDB and see that your favorite games are able to run in Linux. Nvidia still needs to work on their Linux driver, as there is still a performance gap in games that are built using DirectX 12 API. With that said, I'm happy to see that the performance gap is close in some games and that in Vulkan games there is no gap. Nvidia is aware of the issue and hopefully sometime down the line, this gap that can be seen in DirectX 12 games will be fixed through drivers. If Nvidia manages to fix this, some Windows users, especially the ones who play mostly single-player games, will have another option when it comes to operating systems. Until then, it's hard to advocate a move to Linux when losing substantial performance going with Linux distros over Windows using an Nvidia GPU. And that's it for this video. If you liked the video or found it useful, hit the thumbs up button, consider subscribing to the channel and drop a comment below to let me know what made you choose Linux over Windows. Or if you are still on Windows, would you consider a move to Linux if the performance gap was non-existent? Take care, and I hope to see you all in the next one.